What? Ridiculous. I haven't presided at a meeting of the trustees for 1,000 years. And sire is as bad as ancestor. Call me by name. It's been 2 days since I sent for you. Did you come by the scenic route? Or has the rule that entitles me to the ear of the chairman been revoked? I'm not aware of that rule, Senior. It's true I'm not handy with the jabber they speak here. My memory has been playing tricks on me lately. I guess I've been sulky about answering even when I understood. Names. I forgot what name I checked in by when I grounded here. Woodrow Wilson Smith was my boyhood name. I never used it much. I suppose Lazarus Long is the name I've used oftenest. Call me Lazarus. Thank you, Lazarus. For what? Don't be so damn formal. You're not a kid, or you wouldn't be chairman. How old are you? Did you really take the trouble to learn my milk language just to call on me? And in less than 2 days? Was that from scratch? It takes me at least a week to tack on a new language. Another week to smooth out my accent. Oh, none at all. Your accent is okay. It's closer to educated general American of that time than it is the accent I learned as a kid. I can follow anything from Blue Gum to Yorkshire. Accent is no problem. It was mighty kind of you to bother. Warming. Lazarus inclined his head at 2 rejuvenation technicians, dressed in isolation gear and one-way helmets, and waiting as far from the conversation as the room permitted. Don't know English. I can't talk with them. Oh, the taller one understands a little, but not enough for gossip. Lazarus whistled, pointed at the taller. Hey, you! A chair for the chairman. Chop, chop. His gestures made his meaning clear. Anything to eat or drink? Or smoke? You may have to interpret for me. Not now. They keep me stuffed like a goose. Once they force-fed me, damn them. Since we're comfortable, let's get on with the powwow. He suddenly roared, What the hell am I doing in this jail? Jail, I said. All it lacks is cockroaches. This window, you couldn't break it with a crowbar. That door, it opens to any voice except mine. If I go to the John, one of those dummies is at my elbow, apparently afraid I'll drown myself in the pot. Hell, I don't even know whether that nurse is a man or a woman. I don't like it either way. I don't need somebody to hold my hand while I go pee-pee. I resent it. So I figured out. Jail. If this is a rejuvenation suite, where's my suicide switch? That's what I said. That switch belongs right there. You can see where it has been dismounted. So I'm in jail without trial, with my most basic right taken from me. Why? I'm furious, man. Do you realize what danger you are in? Never tease an old dog. He might have one bite left. Old as I am, I could break your arms before those dummies could reach us. No, it's not worth a sweat. They'd have you patched up good as new in 30 minutes. He suddenly grinned. But I could snap your neck and crush your skull about as fast. That's one injury beyond the power of rejuvenators. Lazarus chewed his lip and looked unhappy. Son, I have so many descendants that consanguinity doesn't matter. But you're essentially right. In all my life, I've never killed a man unnecessarily. I think. Then he grinned. But if I don't get my suicide switch back, I could make an exception in your case. Lazarus looked ungracious. Okay, 10 words, not 11. 10 by the rule, Lazarus admitted. But meaning that you need 50, or 500, or 5,000. Huh, said Lazarus. Ira, you old scoundrel. You have me convinced that you really are my kin. You figure that I would not suicide without hearing what you have on your mind. Once I knew you had bothered to learn a dead language just to make palaver. All right, talk. You can start by telling me what I'm doing here. I know that I didn't apply for rejuvenation. But I woke up here with the job already half over. So I screened for the chairman. Okay, Why am I here? What was I doing? I was dying, quietly and decently, like a worn-out horse. That is, I was, until your busybodies grabbed me. Can you think of a better place than a flophouse for a man who doesn't want to be disturbed while he's busy with it? If his cot is paid for in advance, they leave a man be. Oh, they stole what little I had, even my shoes, but I expected that. Would have done the same myself under the same circumstances. And the sort of people who live in flop houses are almost always kind to those worse off than they are. Any of them will fetch a drink of water to a sick man. That was the most I wanted. That, and to be left alone to close out my account in my own way, until your busies showed up. Tell me, how'd they find me? So you busted him? Your business. But why? I reached Secundus from out far. I didn't think I had left any back trail. Different everything since the last time I was in touch with the families, as I bought my last rejuvenation on Supreme. Are the families swapping data with Supreme these days? Well, if a Nova bomb hit Supreme, I wouldn't mourn more than 30 seconds. But I did have a reason for having the job done there, even though I had to pay high for forced cloning. But that's another story. Son, how did you pick me up? Yes, I was annoyed, but it didn't seem worthwhile to make a fuss. I knew I was headed for that flophouse. Ira, I've known that I was dying for quite some time. That was okay, I was ready for it. But I didn't want to do it alone, out in space. Wanted human voices around me, and body odors. Childish of me, but I was pretty far gone by the time I grounded. So, what do you do when 10,000 immigrants arrive in one ship? No doubt at all, Lazarus agreed. But your cops have run out the price on a good phony set of IDs. If I'd been too tired to bother, I would have forged my own. Safer. Was that how I was caught? Did you squeeze it out of the paper merchant? And I might not, Lazarus said sharply. Not ratting on him was implicit in the bargain. It's nothing to me how many of your rules he breaks. And who knows, I might need him again. Certainly someone will need his services. Somebody just as anxious to avoid your busies as I was. Ira, no doubt you mean well, but I don't like setups where IDs are necessary. I told myself centuries back to stay away from places crowded enough to require them. And mostly I followed that rule. Should have followed it this time. But I didn't expect to need any identification very long. Confound it! 2 more days and I would have been dead, I think. How did you catch me? Make it March. I want to know how I goofed. I'm in no rush, Ira. Are you? Lazarus nodded agreement. That was always my system. The times I let myself get involved. Accept the whole load, then shove the work off on other people as fast as I could pick 'em. Having any trouble with Democrats these days? That's what I intended, Lazarus agreed. But, son, it's your pigeon, and I'll never touch that gavel again. But I have doubts about the wisdom of getting rid of troublemakers. Every loaf needs yeast. A society that gets rid of all its troublemakers goes downhill. Sheep? Pyramid builders at best. Decadent savages at worst. You may be eliminating your creative 1/10 of 1%. Your yeast. I said I won't touch that gavel. I don't give advice. People never take it. Not by that name. Sounds like a good place. Perhaps you should have hung on to it. Natives? Son, are you a fool? Oh, you can't be. The trustees wouldn't keep you in office. But, how old did you say you are? Lazarus looked frustrated. Ira, I was about to shove my own experience with such governments down your throat. But you're right, this is a brand-new situation, and we don't know. Oh, I have strong opinions, but 1,000 reasoned opinions are never equal to one case of diving in and finding out. Galileo proved that, and it may be the only certainty we have. All the so-called democracies I've ever seen or heard of were either forced on the majority from above or grew up slowly from the plebes discovering that they could vote themselves bread in circuses, for a while until the system broke down. I'm sorry I won't see the outcome of your experiment. I suspect it will be the harshest tyranny imaginable. Majority rule gives the ruthless, strong men plenty of elbow room to oppress his fellows. But I don't know. What's your opinion? Never mind computers. Ira, the most sophisticated machine the human mind can build has in it the limitations of the human mind. Anyone who thinks otherwise does not understand the second law of thermodynamics. I ask for your opinion. You're getting old, son. To get anywhere or even to live a long time, a man has to guess, and guess right over and over again without enough data for a logical answer. You were telling me how you found me. Of course, agreed Lazarus. I made sure he was on the crook before I bought from him. But you said he stayed zipped? Oh, I wasn't blaming dear old uncle. The fault was mine. I let myself be conspicuous. I was tired, Ira, and feeling my years, and let it rush me into doing a sloppy job. Even 100 years back I would have done a more artistic job. I've always known that it is more difficult to lower your status convincingly than to raise it. Son, the world doesn't pay off on a good try. Go ahead. I was like hell in bad shape. I was simply dying, and minding my own business, a practice you could emulate. Ira, do you realize what a dirty trick you've done me? A man ought not to have to die twice, and I was past the bad part and ready for the finale, as easy as falling asleep. Then you butted in. I've never heard of rejuvenation being forced on anyone. If I had suspected that you had changed the rules, I would never have come near this planet. Now I have to go through it again, either with the suicide switch, and suicide is an idea I've always despised, or the natural way, which could now take a long time. Is my old blood still around? Stored? That's not an answer, so don't bother to lie. You've put me in a dilemma, Ira. Even though I haven't had the full treatment, I feel better than I've felt for 40 years or more, which means either that I must again wait it out for many weary years, or use that switch when my body isn't saying, "Time to adjourn." You meddling scoundrel. By what authority No, you've got the authority. By what ethical principle did you interfere with my death? That's not an ethical reason, just a pragmatic one. The need was not mutual. Lazarus grinned. That's my boy. I was wondering if you would have the gall to try to twist it into some high moral principle, like a damn preacher. I don't trust a man who talks about ethics when he's picking my pocket. But if he's acting in his own self-interest and says so, I have usually been able to work out some way to do business with him. To what end, sir? When I've had more than 2,000 years of trying everything? When I've seen so many planets that they blur in my mind? When I've had so many wives I can't remember their names? We pray for one last landing on the globe that gave us birth. I can't even do that. The lovely green planet I was born on has aged even more than I have. To return to it would be a time for tears, not a happy homecoming. No, son, despite all rejuvenation, there comes a time when the only reasonable thing to do is turn out the light and go to sleep. And you, damn you, you took it away from me. Well, you might get it, but not now. What was this aching reason you needed me? You mentioned some problem other than the troublemakers you transport? I'm sure of it, Ira. I agree, even though I am not interested. As a thumb rule, one can say that any time a planet starts developing cities of more than 1 million people, it is approaching critical mass. In a century or two, it will be fit to live on. Do you have a planet in mind? Do you think you can get the trustees to go along? And will the families follow the trustees? I'm way ahead of you. Migration always involves selection and improvement. Elementary. If they'll do it. If. Ira, I had a hell of a time selling the idea to the families when we moved here back in the 23rd century. I could not have sold it at all if Earth had not become a dreary place. Good luck. You'll need it. Do you mean that, Ira? Or when the time comes, will you kid yourself that it is really your duty to hang on? If a man has the temperament for power, and you have, or you wouldn't be where you are, he finds it hard to abdicate. Lazarus was thoughtfully silent. Witherall waited. Ira, install that suicide switch for me. But tomorrow. Not today. Yes, sir. Don't you want to know why? If you convince me that you are going to migrate, come hell or high water, and no matter what the trustees do, I want to rewrite this. My investments and cash accounts here and there, if somebody hasn't stolen them while my back was turned, add up to a nice piece of change. Possibly enough to make the difference between success and failure in mounting a migration, if the trustees won't back it with Foundation funds, and they won't. Didn't your mother teach you to say thank you? Lazarus grinned. Hell yes. I ought to stick in a condition that you name the planet Lazarus, but I would have no way to enforce it. Okay, we understand each other. And I think, do you respect good machinery? We still understand each other. I think I'll leave the Dora, that's my yacht, to you personally rather than to the family's chairman, if you lead the migration. Don't. Just be good to her. She's a sweet craft. She's never known anything but kindness. She'll make a fine flagship for you, with simple re-outfitting, specs for it in her computer. She'll house a staff of 20 or 30, and you can ground and reconnoiter in her, then lift off again, which your transports won't be able to do, most likely. Lazarus smiled bleakly and shook his head. I've been on 6 such colonizing ventures to virgin planets, not counting Secundus. All the planets I discovered. Gave it up centuries back. Anything gets boring in time. Do you think Solomon serviced all his 1,000 wives? If so, what sort of job did he do on the last one? Poor girl. Find me something new to do, and I might never touch that suicide switch and still give you all I've got for your colony. It'd be a fair swap, as this halfway rejuvenation is most unsatisfactory. I don't feel well, yet I can't die, so I'm stuck between the suicide switch and giving in for the full treatment. The donkey that starved to death between 2 piles of hay. But it would have to be new, Ira. Not something I've done over and over again. Like that old whore, I've climbed the same stairs too many times. My feet hurt. 7 to 2, you can't find anything I haven't done. No promises. Not once I get this will redrafted. Can you trust your chief legal eagle? May need some help, because this will... He tapped the envelope. Leaving everything to the families would stand up on Secundus no matter how many flaws are in it. But if I leave it to a private party, you, I mean, some of my descendants, quite a passel, will scream undue influence and try to break it. Ira, they'll keep it tied up in court until it's dribbled away in legal fees. Let's avoid that, eh? Lazarus's eyes widened with pleasure. Didn't you annoy a few lawyers? Lazarus chuckled. Should have hanged him. You know what he did, don't you? Set up shop again on Felicity and went into politics, if they didn't lynch him. All right, but don't dally. I won't be put off with the Scheherazade gag. Have them send me a recorder, tomorrow morning, say. This conversation is being recorded? Forget it. Ira, I learned centuries back that there is no privacy in any society crowded enough to need IDs. A law guaranteeing privacy simply ensures that bugs, microphones and lenses and so forth, are that much harder to spot. I hadn't thought about it up till now because I take it for granted that my privacy will be invaded any time I visit such places. Then I ignore it unless I am up to something the local law won't like, in which case I use evasive tactics. I said forget it, but I'm surprised at your naivete, a man in your position, in thinking that the record is piped only to your desk. I'll lay long odds, any amount you like, that it goes 1, 2, or even 3 or more other places.